Okay, sweet. We are good. Sorry, everyone, technical difficulties. Hello, my name is Brian Choquet. I am part of the marketing team here at MIT Sloan Admissions, and welcome to a new series of ours called WaterCooler Break, where it's essentially someone from, MIT Sloan Admissions marketing team meeting up with one of our friends across MIT Sloan, and, just chatting for a while, having a nice little water cooler break. And today, for our first episode, we are joined by Dawna Levenson, the Assistant Dean of Admissions. Dawna, thank you for taking the time to join us. I don't know if you want to give like a little intro to everyone who may not know you. So,
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Brian, for arranging this. I'm very excited. This is my first time doing anything live like this, so I appreciate you making it very, very easy for me. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know, as Brian said, I'm Dawna Levenson. I have the privilege of being the Assistant Dean for Admissions at MIT Sloan. I love almost everything about my job. To be honest, if I said everything, you probably wouldn't believe me. So I felt I needed to say almost everything. This is, a pretty busy time of year for us, given where we are relative to all of our programs. But I think through a series of questions that Brian's going to ask me, I'm going to share more about the work we do and our programs, and hopefully information that is of value to you as you think about pursuing graduate management education.
yeah, nice. Thank you, Dawna, for the lovely intro. She is the most positive person in the office. So, everything she said, she does love her job a lot, and she knows a lot about MIT Sloan, which is why I have her here. So, to start, I was wondering if you wanted just to give kind of a little program intro overview of the MBA program. Just
Yep.
get started.
I'm happy to do so. And so, Brian, if I could, though, can I just step back a little bit? And what I want to begin by saying is that at MIT Sloan, we actually offer a portfolio of programs. And so, yes, we offer the 2-year MBA, which I am going to spend the most amount of time talking about. But I think it's important to know that we also offer a variety of other programs for people really at different stages throughout your career. For early career professionals, we offer a Master's of Finance and a Master's in Business Analytics. For people who perhaps are a bit more senior and want a full year immersion, we offer a 1-year Sloan Fellows MBA program. And then for people with slightly more experience who want to continue working while also pursuing an MBA at Sloan, we offer an executive MBA program as well. And we offer actually an MSMS program, which is a Master's of Science in Management Studies for people who either have completed graduate management education at a partner school of ours or are in the process of doing so. And why this is important is because one of the first things I want to tell you about our MBA program is that it has a 1-semester core. And therefore, you have 3 semesters to truly shape the curriculum. It aligns with your interests and your personal goals. Once you start taking these electives, there's a high probability that you're going to be in classes with people from many of these other programs. And this is very much by design. We at MIT Sloan, we are very much a mission-driven school. Our mission, in my words, is to identify and tackle some of the world's biggest and most complex problems in order to make the world a better place. And in order to do that, you need to bring together people with different perspectives and different experiences to really be able to address what those problems are. And so for the 2-year MBA, as I mentioned, a 1-semester core, I think it's also worth noting our class size. So our MBA total class size hovers around 410 students every year. That's a combination of 360 2-year MBAs and 50 LGO students. LGO, which stands for Leaders for Global Operations, is the opportunity to get both an MBA and a master's in an engineering discipline in that 2-year period. And so combined, our class size is roughly 410. As you're out there looking at the MBA landscape and evaluating different schools, I think the size of the class is definitely one of those attributes that influences sort of the overall personality of the school. And we sit somewhere in the middle. There are definitely MBA programs that are closer to 900 or 1,000, and there are others that tend to be smaller. So 410 is in fact our class size. One more. So I mentioned the flexibility, one semester core. What I want to add though is we also offer a series of 3 tracks and 4 certificates depending on what your interests are. So if you're interested in finance or entrepreneurship or enterprise management, we offer 3 tracks to our MBA students. If you're interested in sustainability, healthcare, business analytics, or digital product management, we offer 4 certificates. You can think of tracks and certificates as roadmaps. You could think of them as concentrations. You can also currently combine one of each. So you can imagine doing the finance track and applying it to the field of healthcare. The one piece of advice that I would give that was actually mentioned by students when I talk about this is if in fact you're interested in doing a track and a certificate, you need to be a planner. So you need to lay out your courses very early on in your experience to make sure you're taking the right classes at the right time. Hopefully that wasn't more than you wanted to hear, Brian.
Oh no, this whole thing is about information and you're giving information. So personally, I love it. And if I was a prospective student, I would also love it. So I know you mentioned a lot of really cool stuff, but I was wondering if there's anything you want to add that, aspects of the MIT Sloan's MBA that you really think like make it unique, in your opinion.
Well, so there is one, and it's a big one. We are the only business school who can say that we are MIT School of Management. And it's not just something that we say, and it's not just something you'll find on our logo, but it can definitely shape your experience as much as you want. As an MIT Sloan student, it actually begins with housing. Did you know, Brian, that if you're as a Sloan student, if you decide to live on campus housing and you want a roommate, there is no guarantee that your roommate is a Sloan student. Your roommate could be a PhD in physics. So right there is an example of this opportunity to really become an integral part of the greater MIT community. In addition, you can take classes throughout the Greater Institute and vice versa. So you could be sitting in a finance class next to a PhD in chemical engineering. You can participate in clubs, conferences, competitions throughout the Institute. To me, that is very, very unique, and only MIT Sloan can really claim that.
Yes, yeah, and I remember there's actually one student who said a really great line. We're still MIT School of Management. Emphasis on MIT. We're part of this greater community. So we're just in, even though if you're just enrolled in the Sloan Business School, you still have access to all these other resources across campus. And if you speak, especially to like a lot of the entrepreneur students, they really take advantage of that by teaming up with people doing great stuff across, great engineers across MIT. So that's a really good thing to highlight. And then to also kind of go into that, could you speak? I know you spoke a little bit about it before, but the customizability of the MBA program, because they're with how open it is, it really is allows for a diverse range of people to find a place here. So I wonder if you could kind of talk about that.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, a 1 semester core. And then, we have the tracks and certificates, but we have many people who actually don't pursue either. They're they're strictly optional for you. I think a common theme amongst many of our students these days is anything plus tech. So what do I mean by that? People who are interested in fintech, agri-tech, edutech, health tech, elder tech. And what that means, is that our students will take a variety of courses that focus on whatever that discipline is that they're interested in addition to technologies and entrepreneurship that help them think about, how they want to work in that space. It's interesting. Our career services office, our career development office, has also really recognized this, that so many of our students are really interested in working at the intersection of multiple disciplines, and have provide resources to really support that. An invaluable resource is in fact our alumni network, who not some people a while ago, some people not too long ago, have actually gone through a similar experience and have found themselves working at the intersection of many of these fields. And through the Career Development Office, they really have great access to alums, either just to be able to talk about their experiences, talk about their work, potentially open doors for you, help you build your network in these spaces, but very customizable spaces.
Yes. And I know you mentioned, the intersection of multiple fields. I feel like that is such a moving forward. It really shows how we're trying to keep up and be the future, not just be the present, but make leaders who are able to make impact in the future. And I think intersection of fields is such a big part of, that kind of our future as we go on. So great that MIT Sloan is really embracing that, as well as like the students. I think it attracts like a really great diverse range of people. It makes it an exciting student body environment of people to learn from as well. And we also just want to talk a little bit about our MBA early program, which is, MBA deferred admissions, as most schools call it. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that path and kind of how it differs from, say, the standard MBA path that people kind of know.
Yep, happy to. So in 2019, we launched our MBA early offering. And as Brian said, this is really just an opportunity to apply early to the MBA program. It is not a separate program. You are not part of a separate cohort. You're actually part of an integral part of the actual MBA program itself. But this is an opportunity for college seniors or grad students who have not worked full time to apply to our MBA, to be admitted, and then to be able to defer for 2 to 5 years. So we want you to go and work for 2 to 5 years. And every year we take the initiative to reach out to you, ask you for an update in terms of what you're doing, ask you if you think that potentially the next year is the year you'd be considering matriculating. And what's great for you is, especially for people who like to plan, you have a seat in an MBA program in your back pocket. And we will reserve a seat for you. The way we're able to do this is we ask you to commit during our round one for the year leading up to the fall that you want to matriculate. And so at that point in time, we have a full class to fill, and we're able to easily incorporate those people from the MBA early offering into our class as round one admits. The application process is very, very similar to the MBA process, because in the end, we're looking for evidence of the same qualities we're looking for in our MBAs, because you will be an MBA. We're just recognizing that given the fact that you have not necessarily worked full time, that we're looking for this evidence in other areas. And let me give an example, if I could. So one of the qualities that we really look for is your ability to develop meaningful relationships. So for somebody who's applying straight to the 2-year MBA, who may have 4 years of experience, we're actually looking most likely for evidence from your workplace. For a college senior, where relationship building is really important, but we may be looking for this through sports you may have played, or clubs you may have been involved with, or projects or conferences that you may have led and developed while you were an undergrad. There is really no downsides to this, really. If for some reason you apply and we don't see enough evidence at this point in time to offer you admission, we encourage you to go and work for a few years and then apply again. You'll notice the language of our letters, our decision letters. One is, we accept you. The other is not negative in any way, shape, or form. It is more, at this point in time, we don't feel like we have enough data. We encourage you to reapply. So there is truly no downside to applying.
And as someone who's recently graduated college a few years ago, being in a college environment, I think it helps a lot to complete applications and have the motivation to do that before, you go into the real world, and you have like all, adult life hitting you at once. So I think it is a really great opportunity. And you don't have that pressure of having to go to grad school immediately. You do get that time to get that work experience, to experience life a little bit and be able to come to the MBA with so much background. They're able to fully, take advantage of the program. And since we were speaking about applications, I think this would be a good transition to talk about kind of about our applications, some materials with it. And to start, I personally get this question a good amount over like Instagram, DMs, and emails that we get. But what advice do you have for people who are kind of pondering, when's the right time for an MBA? Very open-ended question, but
Yep, and not a straightforward answer either, because I think it very much depends on the individual, where you are in your life's experience. I would like to, though, give you a few things to think about. And this is Dawna Levenson personally talking here. This is not necessarily the official dean's advice here, because I think we need to separate those some. For me personally, I see the value of work experience in the community. I see the value in the classroom. I see the value of work experience in the community. I see the value of, completing your undergraduate and stepping away for multiple years, gaining perspective, perhaps even gaining some maturity, and then going back and pursuing your MBA. The MBA is an unbelievable experience. It is. It really is. And I think for you to be, as individuals, to be as prepared as possible to make the most of that experience. If you want me to throw out a number, I personally feel that, I understand that there are people who at the 2-year mark feel ready. I feel like perhaps 3 years is a good minimum. And I'm not sure there's really an upper end to that. So, again, there are many, many factors that come into play. And so one of them is clearly your work situation. And there are certain industries that have, a bit of a defined path where they encourage people at the 3-year mark to go and pursue an MBA and then come back. There are other industries that aren't as structured. And so we do see many people at the 4 or 5 year, even 6 or 7 year mark. While our average years of work experience, which, we definitely publish, is 5, our middle 80% is more like 3 to 8. And, my favorite line about averages is the fact that, an average can be meaningful. It can be not so meaningful. Best example I can think of is, what's the average temperature in the United States? Well, if, you're looking at that and you happen to be in Florida and you packed wrong for your travel, that average didn't really mean so much. So we definitely have people from years of experience that really, spread the gamut. People will also ask Brian, what's better, 3 years of experience with the same company or experience with 3 different companies? I don't know if you get that question, but I get that question. And again, the answer is, it depends. What I do want to say, and I know we still have a ways to go, but we are here to talk this through with you. We really view ourselves very much as admissions advisors for you. If you have a specific situation for which you want to talk with somebody, you can reach out to our office in a variety of ways, and we will have somebody speak with you. Everyone's decision is pretty much unique and very, very personal. So I spent a lot of time talking and didn't really answer your question.
No, I think that's perfect. And, I think, it's such a personal thing. And I think that's the beauty of it as well. I like to say it's an MBA journey, and it's your journey to take. No one's going to have the same exact path as you on this, which I think is kind of beautiful part of just life in general. So, and let's see, my next question I had, um, going into maybe some of the qualities that the admissions committee looks for an applicant, and that kind of makes them stand out as, you're reading through a bunch of applications and you're like, oh, this person, has the qualities of like a Sloanie. Could you speak on some of those?
Yes. So I think that at the end of the day, when I'm talking to somebody, when I'm reading an application, I'm asking myself three basic questions. First and foremost, is this person someone who has demonstrated the ability to be successful in an MIT Sloan classroom? We would never want to admit somebody who we didn't think was capable of being successful and doing the work. And, to give us that comfort level, there's many sources of data and information to get that. It's not just your undergraduate GPA. It's not just your GMAT or GRE score. It's not just your work that you're currently doing. It's really a combination of all of these things that give us that comfort level. Number two is, in fact, around impact and contribution. Are you the type of person who has demonstrated the desire, willingness, ability to really make an impact and make a contribution within an organization, within a team, within a group, which I think really speaks so much to the mission and the importance of our mission. And then the third area is really around your interpersonal skills and your ability to work successfully in a team setting. The majority of the work that you're going to be doing, especially your first semester as part of your core requirements, is part of a group or a team. And so how well do you work in a team setting, in a team environment? Do you celebrate the successes of others on your team? And throughout, many elements of the application, as well as the actual interview itself, we're really able to either get evidence of this, or actually, the fact that there's absence of evidence of your ability to be an effective teammate is also interesting information for us.
And to speak on the working in teams part, I've heard stories from current students and alumni, the people who they were paired up in teams with, their first semester, became like their best friends, go to their weddings, like all that, friends for life. So it really speaks to, the community aspect as well at Sloan, and the importance, being able to like work in teams and be able to connect with people. And that's something we really value here. Because, I think it's a building full of just cool personal people, in my opinion. So, and that's another beautiful part about,
And
everything
Brian's
here.
one of them.
Yeah, and Dawna is too. So, and let's see. I also wanted to talk about kind of maybe not totally specific application kind of questions, but I was personally wondering if there are any parts of the application that you don't think people fully take advantage of. We take a holistic view of our application, so every part is equal, but that may not mean like every person puts in equal amount of effort into sections, or fully flourishes them out. So I was wondering if there's any parts that you notice like that, and advice you would give to people to kind of improve those.
Yep. So I don't know if this is going to surprise you or not, but I want to focus on the recommendation letter. So we require one letter of recommendation, which is less than many, many other schools. And therefore, a lot of weight is put on that recommendation. Our preferences is that it's a professional letter of recommendation. It's from somebody, ideally it's your immediate supervisor, although we understand that there's a whole variety of reasons why you may not want them to know that you're applying to business school, and we completely respect that. But it's somebody who is able to really speak in a fair amount of detail to the specifics of your contribution to the organization. It's somebody who is really a cheerleader of yours and a champion of yours, because they need to take the time to write a thoughtful and meaningful letter of recommendation. as you're thinking about applying to business school, this should be maybe one of the first things you're thinking about is who should you ask? You should take the time to sit down with them and let them know what your motivation is, why you want to go to business school. One thing though that we really, really discourage is you actually writing it on their behalf and then them just signing it. You can use us as the bad guys and say, admissions officers have really discouraged this. And I would argue that if somebody isn't willing to take the time to write it themselves, then perhaps they're not the best recommender. So I think that's an area where people really need to think about who they want to ask and then invest the time in, speaking with them and sharing with them some of their thoughts and then following up with them as well, because excuse me, from a pure technology standpoint, you share their name and contact information with us, and then we send them the format for the letter of recommendation. It's due the same time your application is due. But it would be helpful for you also to periodically send friendly reminders.
And I think that's a great point of actually sitting down with your recommender, and actually talking through some of the important pieces of why you want to go to business school. I think that's a very good piece of advice that I don't think I've actually heard from, I've listened to a lot of MBA advice, podcasts or anything. I don't actually ever think I've heard that. So I think that's a very unique bit of information as well. And, like I said, we do take like a holistic view of the application. So you want to make sure every part of it is as strong as you can make it, because we do really value every single piece. Every single piece is just another way for us to get to know you. And to go off that, recommendations, and everything in general, it takes a lot of time to get together. How much time would you recommend someone to work on an application or even like think about, their application and business school?
Mm-hmm. So here's my answer, Brian. Brian gave me these questions in advance so I could think about them. And this is an interesting question. My answer is similar to the length of a dog's legs. So what do I mean by that? Because obviously dogs' legs vary depending on the different breed, but they all do one thing in common, which is they're all long enough to touch the ground. And so what I mean by that, again, is it really varies. There are some people who are better at putting together an application than others. That doesn't make them a better student necessarily, but they're just more comfortable with this process. I think to be safe, we will let you know as soon as the application goes live. If you're thinking about applying in a round one, and I certainly would not wait till the last minute. I would certainly not wait till like a week before to ask your recommender. I would encourage you to start as early as you're really thinking about it, because I know, especially within our application, you have a cover letter to write, you have a video to record, and people want to be able to think about it, perhaps do some editing. I would actually encourage you. Here's another piece of advice. To once you're done with your cover letter, give it to somebody who knows you well and say, does this sound like me? I know that people sometimes get so caught up in every word that when they're done, it just sounds like a bunch of words. And so to ask, to build in time to have somebody who knows you read it and see if it accurately reflects you. Similar with your video, I think those, and these things all take time. So, I can tell you when not to start. Don't start the night before, and probably don't even start a week before, but I don't know when to start.
I would say make sure you can start and also get a full night's sleep, while you're working. You do not want to work on this while you're tired, in my opinion. And to transition, we talked about, the program, we talked about some application tips, but I kind of want to ask you some questions, Dawna, because, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Dawna is actually an alum of MIT Sloan. She is a, full-blooded Sloanie. And I really want, kind of get a perspective on being part of like the Sloan community as both an alum and as the assistant dean of admissions. You're kind of like you kind of your life is really kind of intertwined with Sloan, and you're really helping also bring in that next generation. And making the next Sloanie leaders. And I was wondering, kind of how does that feel for you?
What a great question, Brian. It makes me feel very proud. It also makes me realize just what an amazing opportunity I have and how fortunate I am. I think the thread of continuity here is, in fact, the mission of both MIT and MIT Sloan, which is, again, really about identifying and tackling the world's biggest and most complex problems. That's what it was when I was a student. Truth be told, I have my 40th undergrad reunion in a couple of weeks. And when I was here now, 44 years ago, that was what the focus was. Obviously, the problems were different, but really, trying to there's a practical aspect to the education here. And that has really been a theme, I think, throughout. And I understand the role I play right now. Trust me, it's a very small role in making the world a better place, but I think it gives me a great sense of purpose and it makes me feel really good. And again, feel very fortunate. And as you mentioned, it's all sort of intertwined. I have, in fact, become a little bit more active alum, both as an undergrad and as a Sloanie, which I like that as well. So it all works for me. So thank you.
And also to go off that, I'm really curious how, since you are so a part of MIT Sloan and the culture, how have you seen it kind of grow over time as well?
So first and foremost, I wrote my master's thesis on a computer that was the size of a portable sewing machine. And I lived in a walk-up back then, and I got blisters on my hand as I would have to lug the computer up and down. So clearly technology has changed a little bit as we're both sitting here on our, 2 or 3 pound laptops today. But the biggest shift, like really the most significant shift, when I was a student here, Sloan was really viewed very much separately. And I didn't quite understand it initially because I came from the undergrad side, I came from the main campus side. And when I was a grad student, I would continue to have a lot of my undergraduate friends, and I would connect with the other side of campus. My classmates didn't. It actually took me a while to really realize that. They were attending Sloan, which, oh, by the way, happened to be on the MIT campus. Somewhere in the last 40 years, that pendulum has completely shifted. And now think about all the things you and I talked about, earlier on. We are MIT School of Management. As a MIT Sloan student, you can take classes, and people do. You can participate in clubs, conferences, competitions. People do all of that. The integration between our MIT Sloan students and the greater MIT community is significant, and it happens in many, many different ways. That is a huge shift. For the better, I would argue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what makes MIT Sloan so special, because you have access to so much, and MIT in general is such like a thriving campus community. I live in the area, so I see how much goes on around here. It seems like every day there's some kind of activity or big thing or some kind of prank that they're doing. MIT loves pranks, by the way, everyone. There are a lot of jokesters around here, but it's just like such a thriving community that, when you come here, whether it's for like MBA or MFin or anything like that, you are immediately welcome into, and you just have access to all these resources. And so that's another beautiful thing about MIT Sloan. And so we're kind of nearing the end. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Dawna, but I was wondering, as kind of like in send off, if you had any last pieces of advice or takeaways for prospective students, or anything you want to add that you weren't able to bring up about the questions.
Yep. So, Brian, I want to thank you for actually doing this. This has been great. And I hope this has been of value to people who are listening. Um, so, a couple of different pieces of advice. First and foremost, for those of you who are listening, do exactly what you're doing here with every school for which you're interested in. Visit them as well. Come visit us if you haven't. I think it's really helpful as you're starting your MBA journey to go and visit schools, to engage with students, to engage with alums. Every school has a personality, and sometimes it doesn't always come through on a written piece of paper or a brochure, but it comes to life through events like this and in-person events. My second piece of advice would be to apply to business school. Like, if you're thinking about doing it, go ahead and do it. Do not be concerned that you may not get in. You know what? The only way you're 100% guaranteed not to get in is if you don't apply. So take the chance if it's something that interests you. And then finally, be yourselves. Throughout your applications, whether it be to our school or any other, there are no right and wrong answers. There aren't. It's an opportunity for you to share who you are with the admissions committee for whatever schools it is you're applying to. And in the end, you want to get to the right answer. You don't want to present yourself in a way that you think the school wants, and then you end up at a school that just isn't right for you. Be yourselves through your essays, through your videos, through your interviews, through your interactions with students and alums. Be yourself. This is a great time to apply to business school. You have many, many outstanding offerings out there. And I just hope that MIT Sloan is on your list. Thank you.
That's beautifully said, Donna. Well, thank you so much for joining me here on WaterCooler Break. It was great chatting over some water with you. And I hope everyone who, attended, had a good time. This will also be available, on our LinkedIn page, on our YouTube. So if you want to go back, and, re-listen to all the wonderful things Donna said, it would be available there. But thank you again. This will be a regular series also. So come back again here. But I hope everyone just has a great rest of their, here it's very sunny in Boston. Hopefully it's nice everywhere else as well. But have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, cheers.